Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. I'd just like to bring you to a new approach with the Terrace Talks. And a subject that I'd bring today is about the covenant. And going back to the tabernacle of Moses and the covenant that Yahuwah made with him, and looking at the tabernacle and the priestly garments. The garments that the priests wore in the temple, I found was very, very interesting. They had to be cleansed, sprinkled in with blood. Why? Cleansed. Why? Without sin. Why did this happen? To enter into the most set apart place, into Yahushua's presence. So this was the plan of Yahuwah in the tabernacle. And how does that speak to us today? So we look at the animal sacrifice at the altar, how the blood had to be shed by the priests working around the altar, and that was a pretty hard, heavy situation where they cut up the animals. They had to collect the blood and burn the offering on the altar, and it was like working in an abattoir where the animals were being slaughtered, and this was the priest's job there. This speaks to us about the time when we first come to recognise the sin that's in us, that we are against Yahuwah, and we need to repent. We repented from our hearts and being genuinely sorry. And that's what we did when we came to Yahushua. We're very sorry for our worldly mindset, the habits. We could see what was in us, and we could see how it was against our Creator. And therefore the priests went to be cleansed in the lava, in the water. They had to be cleansed and washed. They washed themselves. All their garments were washed clean from the blood and the slaughterings. And this speaks to us about our immersion. When we came to Yahushua and we went under the water, when we received a new heart and a new spirit. Our old heart, our hard, stubborn heart, had to be made new, had to be changed under the water, and this is where the divine operation happens. And this is an amazing thing when we come into the immersion. What happens if we're genuine? We really can see a difference, and we can feel a difference. Then the priests had to enter into the set apart place, and the furniture there was the lampstand to start with. There was oil in the cups, and the oil had to be continually supplied and poured into the cups, and giving light from the fire that shot through from Shemayim. The light came from Shemayim, from Yahuwah. And the lampstand speaks to us of Yahuwah's light, the light of the world. The oil is the spirit coming into us. Then the table of shewbread, our need for Yahuwah sustaining us. The manna is represented by the shewbread, and he is our bread of life. The bread of life we need to sustain us daily. And coming into this, we realise we need the Word. We need His Word. We need a new knowledge of His Word. We've filled ourselves with worldly knowledge. We've filled ourselves since we were a child with all the ways of the world and traditions and the different situations brought up in ourselves with our families, and this needed to be put into a new place. Then there was the incense, the prayer and adoration of the people drifting through the veil. The incense, the veil, is also closed to people, only the high priest once a year. And if they were unclean, of course, they would be struck dead and slaughtered because of the power of Yahuwah's presence. And we know that that veil was split in the middle, giving us direct access to Yahuwah, to Yahusha. So the access to the most holy place, into the Ark of the Covenant, where the blood was sprinkled and atonement was made for sin. And that's a shadow of Yahusha's sacrifice, because we know the wages of sin is death. We all should die because of the sin. So the sin was judged, and we need to be made clean. We need to be made clean if we want his presence. And for so many of us, we feel like once we come in to know Yahusha and we're immersed and get his spirit and a new heart, and his spirit comes into us, we think, okay, we're right, we're on our path, we're okay, but we need to continually have his presence with us. So the sin is being judged in us constantly. Yahusha is judging the sin in us. We need to be made completely clean. So I want to bring that understanding of the priestly garments, the garments the priests wore, into the new covenant, and that speaks to us about our armour, the armour that he told us to put on, into this being the garment to wear, the garment of helmet of salvation, of deliverance, into Yahuwah. We're all set apart unto Yahuwah. That's us. The breastplate of righteousness is part of our garment, part of our armour. The word to wield the sword of the Spirit, the belt of truth, the shield of belief. Put out the fiery, hurtful darts on the shield. That's our belief, if we believe and have a strong belief. The feet ready to give good news of peace and loving conversation. So these things are part of our garments. They're part of our walk. We need to be right in covenant relationship and behaviour. We have to be in right covenant behaviour, to put the word in every situation. Now this I found very hard. I used to run with my husband 4 businesses, and I thought, how can I have Yahusha with me, and I've got all this responsibility, and I can't put my mind on him. So I'd separate, and I'd have my businesses, my world, my life, my responsibilities through the day, and then I have Yahusha separated, and I couldn't bring it together. I didn't know, I didn't have this information, I didn't have this knowledge. And today we're finding that we can connect every detail of our lives to line up with his covenant. So we can put every word of his in every situation to Scripture, and we can put him in every part of our life. If we don't do that, we're having ourselves on. We're being hypocritical. We're not dying to ourselves. We haven't put ourselves on the altar and burnt up ourselves. I wanted my mind, I wanted my education, my reputation, the things I had. I wanted to keep my understanding, my experiences of life. I wanted to have myself. I still wanted I thought, how can I give up completely? How can I completely give up myself and yet still be myself? And yet Yahushua's saying he wants us to give up ourselves, to give ourselves to him completely. How do you give yourselves to Yahushua completely? And this is the way, by understanding about his covenant, what he has done and how he put all those parts of the tabernacle, shadow form, for us to follow into his covenant. So we can go in boldly, we can be in his throne room, we can enter in if we are clean. And we need to be clean and set apart for Yahushua to be able to come into us and stay with us. So the agreement of the new covenant with us is deliverance from sin, washed clean, have the new heart and a new spirit with his seed in us. And this is so exciting to understand. This is true, having that seed of Yahushua planted in us when we come into immersion and come into his will and get washed clean and continually be cleansed. He wants to write his laws and rules on our hearts, because if we don't have his laws and his rules, what do we have? We have our laws and our rules and our traditions and our way and what we think. I always thought my way was so important in my life and in my family, and I couldn't give it up. I didn't want to give it up because I didn't believe totally in Yahushua's way. I thought, no, it's too hard. It's too hard. No one can give up their life completely. And yet, who are you when you give your life up completely? What are you going to be? What's he going to do to you? It just freaked me out, and I was afraid, and I didn't want to let go. But recently I've started to let go and let Yahushua control my life, and I've found that this is so different. I didn't think that he loved me this much, that he would take every area in my life and show me, even in all the responsibilities that he gives us. His way in doing them is so much easier than us fighting for our way. His way. So the seed that he put in us needs to grow, and we need to nourish it, fill us with the word. When Yahushua comes to teach us something, to be flexible and move with him, because it's constant moving and it's constant growing. It's constantly, he constantly replenished the light, the oil in the lamp. He needed to keep replenishing that constantly. It was very interesting that where in the candlestick they didn't have a wax candlestick, because the wax in a candle, it sustains itself. It burns down and burns and sustains and burns into itself, whereas the oil needs a continual flow. It needs to be continually poured and continually topped up. And Yahushua wants to continually top us up and fill us with his word, his spirit. If we tap in and know that through the portal he's given us, that we can communicate and have total access to the Creator. This is insane to know and to believe. He's true and full of love and full of goodness. We have access through an open portal of our hearts And this incredible covenant that he's given us, that he has done away with the old covenant and given us a new covenant. All the old was a shadow, and the new covenant he's brought to us, where he wants to dwell in his people, but he can't if we're not clean. Brothers and sisters, I beg you, go through the sacrifice, go through the burning up, go through that burning and that heat that he puts on us, that hard pressing of the pressing down to squeeze out the juice. Go through that hard pressure, because on the other side of it you'll be cleansed, you'll be clean, and you'll be able to be in Yahushua's presence daily. And at the moment I can see we are in the last days. So stay in his covenant, brothers and sisters. It's so important not to let go, to stay in him and be part of this wonderful journey that we're on. It's so very exciting, and I know if you grasp this, that the sin in you is being judged. He will judge his people first, and he wants to cleanse us and judge us and set us free. Go for it, brothers and sisters. Don't be afraid. Don't let go, and he will see you through. He will give you his love and pour into you things that you've never ever experienced in your life. It's so wonderful, and I just want to encourage you, keep going and clean out. Thank you, brothers and sisters.